Hey everybody, happy Tuesday. I think it's Tuesday somewhere. Um, I'm Haley Gray. I'm the group owner in the Women's Entrepreneur Network. Vicki is laughing at me. I need a stiff drink.
I was going to say, we haven't even been drinking and we don't know what day it is.
I'm completely sober, y'all. And I don't know whether I'm coming or going. If you guys are on the live, give me a hashtag live. If you're on the replay, give me a hashtag replay. If you don't know whether you are coming or going, let me know that too, because
this is the place to be.
This is the place to be, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It's been a crazy week. My son was running to go get pizza on Saturday night at boarding school, which is 4.5 hours from here, and apparently slipped on a patch of water, fell and stopped his fall with his face.
Does that make you pucker when you hear stories like that? Everything inside just goes when I hear that. Ugh.
Yeah, the kiddo's going to have a crown, a root canal, knocked out several teeth.
Oh.
Well, didn't knock him out. Chip broke him off real good. So he's the kid who struggles with going to the dentist is going to be spending a lot of quality time in the dentist chair. So it's been a doozy of a week.
That's an expensive week.
Yeah, it's been kids do that. It's just, this is part of like being a mom and a business owner and all the things. And then this is life coming at you 1,000%. So welcome, Vicki. You heard my crazy story. How are you doing?
I'm doing better. I was on the short list for surgery for March 8th, and I saw the surgeon and he said, "You are better, and we are not going to do this."
That is such a miracle.
And a day at a time, but I'm feeling good and I am very grateful. So, and I trust this guy, and we'll see, but I'm grateful. So Tiger Woods and I have had the same very extensive back surgery, and I would rather not do any more. So here I am. Today I am a grateful woman. So
you were in so much pain, and I mean the big surgery, and then you were in pain again, and so I'm just amazingly grateful that you're feeling.
I'm feeling great. Yeah, I'm feeling great. And I wanted to say, I had lunch with an old friend today, someone I've known 40 plus years, and it was so lovely. She too is retired, and so she's doing some teaching with COVID. She's doing some tutoring and things like that. But so lovely to have a real conversation with an old friend and talk about genuine things, as opposed to how about those Red Sox, or did you hear the so and so's?
Oh my gosh!
None of the nonsense, none of the gossip, none of the just things that are important in times like these. And she's a widow, and in times, and it's hard because she's living at home. Her dog has died. Her husband has died. And she said, I walk around my house talking to myself. And she said, that's not good. And I need to bounce things off of people. And that's what we did. And it was just so fun. And it was a pleasure to have that lunch today. And, went and did my appointments and so forth. And, anyway, I'm glad to be here tonight. And I wanted to catch 10 minutes of a nap, and my little darling cat kept tumbling over my head. Like, no, I want your attention. And then would bite the tip of my nose and would bite my eyebrow. And nope, I want your attention. So here I am. Yes, I'm very glad to be here. And you and I talked about, I had fielded some ideas for this podcast to you. And one of the things that we had talked about is clients who are unreasonable and how we handle unreasonable clients.
Yeah, I've had my fair share of really crazy clients, non-payment, texting me at 11 o'clock on a Sunday night or a Saturday night and demanding instant whatever. We've had the situation that we had to clear up after an employee was let go from a client because he was sexually harassing members.
Oh, wait, does that sound like a governor we know? Just saying.
I'm just saying, apparently, but we've had our fair share of like crazy, wild customers, the customers who pitched a fit that we took off Christmas Day.
Yes, you and I talked about that. And isn't it interesting, expectations and managing expectations? And I want to know if there's anybody out there who really thinks that's reasonable, or if it's just some asshat throwing his weight around.
Right.
I can remember, as I said to you, the law firm is one particular law firm that, okay, it's 1 o'clock, it's Thanksgiving, you've had your turkey, get your ass in here, it's time to go to work. And I remember the managing partner was 38 years old when he had a quadruple bypass. Yeah, I bet you did, Buster.
I bet you did, yeah.
Just wound up tight. He's on wife number 87 at this point. And,
Is that all?
Yeah. And what does he drink for breakfast? Like 7 martinis, because that's the only way he can cope, because he's created this uber stressful environment and expectations that everybody must live this way. And I think,
yeah,
when law firms are expecting people to bill 2,500 hours a year. Now think about it. If you work 40 hours a week, have 2 weeks of vacation, 40 hours a week, that's 2,000 hours a year that you're working. And you're supposed to bill 2,500 or 3,000. First of all, somebody's lying, or somebody's working 100-hour weeks.
You think?
And, I'm creating a work product that I'm selling to you, and you. And I'm billing you all for something that I've already created. I got problems with that. I think there are problems with that. But the demands. So it's not only
and our contract is always
love you.
Yeah, in our contract in our businesses, we work certain days of the week, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And those are the hours. Now, if we can answer something outside of normal business hours, we may. But, we're pretty clear in our contract that we don't work outside of normal business hours. But it is not unusual to have clients who are messaging us going, hey, I need you to fix blah, 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 blah.
What if a website goes down, though, like on a weekend? What do you do?
So if a website goes down and it's emergency, we have emergency provisions in our contract that it's a certain number of dollars per hour to deal with it. Honestly, that rarely happens. It's something that happens maybe once every few years. So we generally don't deal with emergencies unless somebody's website has been hacked, or usually I'd say the bigger emergency is somebody at the business did something really stupid. And we're dealing with a PR
crisis. We talked about that with Facebook account, right?
Well, and we've had cases where, if your business doesn't have like a Facebook business manager for your business page, and, you have everybody and their cousin posting on your Instagram accounts, and you've got multiple locations and you don't have everything centralized in rules. You can get some really, really weird stuff if you've got random people posting for you and doing stuff on your social media. I heard a story recently of a former client that we ended up letting go for being really, really difficult. Who ended up with a colleague of mine, a friend, and apparently they left the business, and because of the way that they weren't managing their business pages through the business manager, they had given their local managers full access to everything. somebody left the company, cut all of the company members off of the Facebook business page and renamed it to FU blah, blah, blah.
And you immediately call HR and say, which one of you hired him? Her, whatever.
Right, exactly. Whoa, right?
Did anyone do any background check?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Boundaries are so important and they are hard to establish, especially when you love what you do. Absolutely. And somebody's saying, oh my, yeah, we talk about dealing with unreasonable clients, I dare say that a lot of pain that we see in this industry, I mean, not saying that my team is perfect, because y'all, I don't pretend that we are. We definitely have a provision for working, weekends and holidays or whatever. It's $250 an hour. But generally, very little of what we do with digital marketing is truly a emergency, because most of the time, Christmas Day, we're going to be turning your ads off because chances are you don't even want calls that day to your business, unless you're trying to get, opt-ins into something on a funnel. But there's really not a lot that should be happening and changing on, Christmas Day in your business.
I have two things I want to say about that. And y'all can laugh at this because I still think it's funny as hell. First thing, the business end of this is, for all of you who are listening and hearing what we're talking about, this is the moral of the story, is that whoever writes your contract, you better have this stuff in the contract. So that your clients can't call you and say, what do you mean you don't work on Christmas? Or what do you mean it's after hours and you're an extra $100 or whatever it is?
Right.
Those things have to be in the person who talked about boundaries being important. It's up to you as the business owner to set those boundaries. And if you lay down what the expectations are and go over it line by line by line, which I always did with my clients, we reviewed the contract together and I had them initial and date each page so that, you understand what we're talking about. And I didn't do that as a CYA. I did that so that I could go back and say, okay, we talked about this. Remember this. You need to understand this, because if you don't understand it, you're going to be unhappy. And always, you don't take their money and you don't start the work until you're real clear on what the boundaries are. So make sure that contract is very clear. But I think about, you talk about Christmas. I practice family law, like for forever. And again, okay, the presents have been opened. I hung in here. Now it's time to get divorced. So the busiest time of year was after Christmas. I mean, and the answering
I'm sure December 26th.
Oh yeah. I mean, can I get
answering service went crazy.
Oh, it was nuts. It was absolutely nuts. And my husband
probably starting December 24th, because people are flipping out about custody.
Oh, yeah.
And mom or dad didn't bring them to the assigned spot. So now everybody's
having 5 minutes late or whatever. And it's like this poor child is in the middle of crazy people. I think about this, and my husband had a theory and he was really right. It was when the weather would change. When it would get warm, all the stress would die down because people could go outside. They were no longer hostages inside with a person they no longer wanted to be married to. Or it would get cold and they'd have to be inside. And you would see the shifts in behavior with the weather. And I had never thought about it. And he was absolutely right. He was watching it from far. Gee, you're really busy. Yeah, it started to snow and they've been inside all week, that kind of thing. But I think about boundaries and expectations. If you write it out, and I mean, write it not in legalese, but in plain English, and then talk about it with your client, what this means, not just what's written, but what it means and how it's going to affect them. You're going to have a happy client. And you're always going to be able to say, yeah, well, Bill, we talked about it. It's on the first page of the contract. I don't do this stuff on Saturdays. We'll talk on Monday, unless your website crashes, whatever. We'll talk about it on Monday and you'll be the first guy I call. And then people are happy. And I think that's what you want. And that's managing expectations like our person has said.
Absolutely. And it's definitely not easy to handle some of this stuff, especially if you make sure that it's in your contract and you try to be really transparent. Yeah, it's also helpful to discuss best forms of communication so parties know. If they don't, yeah, people might think that they're doing the right thing and they're really upsetting people. And even sometimes you have conversations with clients about this is the best way to communicate with our team. And then they are texting you at 2:00 in the morning. I've got one of those who does that consistently. You know, and it's that constant reminder, or, you know, we explain, hey, you know, we're trying to get all this stuff together for your website. And, you know, we're happy to take stuff as, you know, in Google Drive or Dropbox, but we need one central place for everything. And, you know, we've had some that like to send every line of their website as separate emails, and we have to go back and explain, I'm sorry, unless you want us to drop balls. You need to put it all together in one place.
And with time, you know, it has to be here by the 1st of the month, or it has to be here within 14 days or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And you have, you know, a week to review your website, or it's considered final. You know, that particular set of changes is going to be considered what it is, or we can charge you extra. But if you're not reviewing.
I thought about something today in a conversation that I had about, you know, for example, when people get divorced, you have 90 days to come get your things. And we have a list of your things. And one does not have the luxury of saying, I'm going to throw out his baseball card collection because I don't like him, which I had happen. I had a woman put the guy's baseball card collection out in a yard sale, and it was worth $100,000, and she sold it for, you know, $1,000 to screw him over. It's kind of like, here's the key to the Porsche. I'll sell it for $50. Got what I could. And courts want to be very angry when people do this, and held her accountable and simply said, oh, well, that's $100,000 out of his pension you ain't getting. So it worked out well. But I think that again, like our friend says here, the transparencies are very important. You and I talked about something before we started that I want to talk about with everybody, and that is in a social media age, and there's something about social media where you're invisible, where you're not face to face with people, that you tend to say things you might not say or do things you might not do because you don't know that you're going to be accountable. Whereas people are saying, well, look, if you don't give me what I want, I'm going to smear you on every platform I can find. And blackmail seems to be the new, you know, extortion is the new, I don't even know what, but
right.
Gee, I'm going to get you to do something I want. If I don't, I'll ruin your business that way. And I don't know what.
And you're basically going to work for me for free, or I'm going to sue you, or I'm going to smear you. Yeah, I've had a couple of people who have done that. Basically, you're going to work for free, or I'm going to sue you.
Well, have at it is usually like, okay, and that's why we have this contract that I am following, and you must follow as well, because we have both signed it, we both agreed to it.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's why you have a tight contract. But that's not going to change the human behavior of someone who is vulgar enough or ill-mannered enough or greedy enough to just simply say, if I don't get what I want, you're going to have to work for free, and I'm going to, you know, say you molest little children or something. You know what I mean? People do.
Right. Or I'm going to smear your business on social media because I feel like it. Yeah.
So how do you handle that?
You know, usually I fire those clients pretty quickly.
I think that's a great idea.
You know, usually once we approach that point, we're done.
I would think so. I would think you'd have to.
You know, the first thing we do is we figure out, okay, what are we done? Do we need to refund? Do we need to fire the client? How do we exit out of this? Because we don't continue with clients that do that.
And y'all have to make sure that you write a very tight letter when you fire a client, and you tell them why and how they violated the contract. you can't just end the conversation with the extortion. You need to talk to your lawyer how to handle it.
Yeah.
In your state, whatever that is, but you need to communicate exactly why you're doing this, and you need to address that. Should you? I can think in my client that we will never go to court unless we are paid beforehand, because you might lose and say, "Well, I lost. Screw you. I'm not paying you." That's not acceptable.
Right.
So that if they do not come up with the money for court, and I don't go, they can't say, "Well, she stiffed me in court," because the contract very clearly says you got to pay X before we go to court. And X is, X isn't $500,000. X is me saying to you, it's, 3 hours of prep, it's 2 hours of court time, anything else I'll bill you for, but I need this in advance before I go in. That work I'm going to do in advance is covered, and for my time that I'm going to be there. And I think that's very reasonable behavior, because you're asking me to put somebody else in the back of the bus to put you in the front. So, and that's what is going on in your business. If I'm asking you to work on my website, that means Sally Sue is in the back of the bus. So I better be paying, and I better be nice, and I better not be extorting if I want to get my work done with you. And you know what the shame of this is, everybody, is that this is the bare minimum of decorum. I mean, this is the bare minimum of decent behavior. I mean, good behavior is way up there. This is just entry level, the bottom of the barrel. And yet we still have to talk about it because people are not complying with this behavior, which I find just stunning. I find it stunning.
Right.
It is what it is.
Well, and I mean, people just,
yeah.
I look at it sometimes too, and there is a tendency to blame the lawyer or blame the professional for, well, I hired them to do such and such and they didn't win. Well, you didn't tell me you were having an affair with 3 other women and your ex has pictures of it.
I will tell you about a time I went to court, and this was a slam dunk. Just ask me, right? And the man had a child. The mother ran off when the child was 6 months old. The mother was a drug addict and a prostitute. The child is now 8 years old. She's been gone all this time.
Right.
She comes back and makes a case because he's moved the child away. He's moved the child about 2 hours away. And she wants custody. And it's like, where the heck have you been? You haven't even sent a Christmas card. And all it took was the attorney on the other side to say, Billy Bob, isn't it true you're a registered sex offender? And I just about fell out of my chair. And yes, he was. And yes, he lost custody. And yes, she had cleaned up her act, no longer was a drug addict, and no longer was a prostitute to support her drug habit, et cetera, et cetera. Come to Jesus, the whole bit. She had cleaned up her life, which was a great thing. It was a great thing for the child to have a mother who was now part of his life. But that client had not, I kind of forgot to tell you that part. Like, how was the play, Mrs. Lincoln? Oh my gosh. And there I was, and the judge just looked at me and said, well, Miss Bentley, have you talked to your client lately? And, I thought I was just going to die. But you'd think a client would have told me that. Now, did he go home and say, well, my client lost my case, and, everybody think, well, how could she lose the case when your ex-wife, whatever, hadn't seen the child in 7.5 years? Well, when you're a registered sex offender,
and your attorney doesn't know about it.
Yeah. And there are specific rules about that in court, about custody and sex offenders. Yeah. So expectations, here we go. We're back to managing those again. Yikes.
Funny how that happens.
Yeah. Funny thing. Yeah. Oh, those pesky little expectations.
Well, yeah. And I mean, I would say common decency and basic professional behavior, things that you would expect in a work environment, y'all, I see people do stuff online that I'm just horrified by.
Give me an example.
You know, showing up late. I see, gosh, on a daily basis. We saw a situation the other day where one of the moms in my son's school saw fit to post personal information about some of the other students.
What kind of personal information? Minors? About minors?
Mm-hmm.
That's actionable.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then was surprised when the post got deleted. You know, but there's just a lot of like things that we see, you know, professionally in businesses and personally, you know, in the online world that you're like, how did you even think that was a thing?
But let's take it to another level. Let's take it to the Duke rape case, where the faculty of Duke takes out a full-page ad in the newspaper talking about these guys being bad, guilty, whatever. The attorney general makes up all kinds of smack to the point where he gets disbarred. And the three guys who were innocent have their lives ruined.
Mm-hmm.
Like, where's the justice in that? I mean, it's just beyond the pale that people feel that, you know, it's okay. I can just, we don't know the facts. We don't know the truth, but let's just jump on the bandwagon and decide that they're all bad guys just because they were, you know, lacrosse players and therefore they were wild boys or whatever. It's outrageous.
No, I mean, I've had clients who cursed at us, who, you know, demeaned us, who've called us all kinds of things. I've had some texts that were like, oh my goodness. You know, if you wouldn't say it to somebody in person, okay, some of these people might say these things
there you go.
in person.
There you go.
But, you know, it's just like, whoa, guys.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know,
something else we talked about is, and I'm not sure why, but it's, I'm going to ask for something for free.
Mm-hmm.
And wait a minute, that involves my time, that involves, this is a work product.
Mm-hmm.
And there are all kinds of ethical considerations for that when you're practicing law. I can't speak to your business, but the thought that it's one thing to barter, it's one thing, I get that. But why do people think it's okay to not pay someone for their work? I find that, I just find that odd. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Why indeed?
It's disheartening because it says you're not valuable.
Mm-hmm.
So, things to think about. And we're back to boundaries.
Boundaries again, and valuing what you do. And, you know, how do you handle the truly difficult, unreasonable clients? Well, you figure out how close you are to the end point and whether it's easier to finish it or ditch them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I think these are all very important things. And I think for anyone who's in business, to think about these contingencies before you sit down at your desk with this person.
Yeah.
I think that what if this happens? What if that happens? To know those things is going to make you a better business owner, a better entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't mean that you're negative. I go back to flying airplanes. When I was a very bitty girl, my father said to me, you know, we turn over the engine. My father said to me, okay. And this, you know, we're just coming off the ramp. We haven't gone flying. We haven't done anything. He said, okay, you're rolling down that runway and your engine quits. What are you going to do? and you're at the halfway point, or you're at the 3/4 point. We would talk about different points. And the reason being is that when you're in those situations, you're very busy. And often you make an emotional decision. And those emotional decisions can do you a lot of harm. Whereas if you make a rational decision ahead of time, you tend to get out of trouble. You go on autopilot instead of trying to get ahead of yourself and trying to recover. And I think, as he said, Billy's favorite quote was, you want to find out if you have superior judgment rather than superior skill. And when you use good judgment, that keeps you ahead of the airplane. And that keeps us ahead in our business, as we fly along in our business. That if you look at contingencies ahead of time, and especially if you got a spidey sense about a client, which I bet you do. And oh no, that couldn't be. How often do we do that to ourselves? Oh no, that won't happen, because maybe
we seem so sweet
like that. Yes,
that person seems so nice.
But I think that we need to listen to that and think, okay, so what if this client does this? How am I going to respond? And if you have decided ahead of time, you are infinitely better off, because you're just gonna go on autopilot and do what you got to do. And you go according to your contract, you go according to what you have set out in front of you, and you get it done. I think that's the way to fly.
Absolutely.
So
I love it.
That's what I got to say about that.
Yep. Perfect. I love it. No, this is really insightful. I mean, I think that these are topics that every business owner has to deal with at some point or another. And one of the things I see in the online space is frequently, well, you should just let the client go, whatever. Pragmatically, you've got to weigh, paying your bills and, how much extra time is this client taking? And is there maybe something, that they're unhappy about that they're actually right about?
That involves getting your ego out of the way.
Yeah. So, I mean, you may be dealing with somebody who's difficult, but they may not be intentionally difficult. So separating whether, you've got somebody who's just genuine asshole, which I've had a couple, from ones that are like, upset because you screwed up and just not being great to deal with because they're not in a good frame of mind. And knowing where the differences are is kind of important. But that involves checking your ego at the door, almost no matter which way you go.
And sometimes that's hard. Especially
that's hard.
Yeah. Especially when they're poking you in the chest and trying to get a rise out of you. That if you're busy defending yourself, you cannot address their bad behavior. So
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, cool. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been fun.
This has been good. And
this has been good. You gave me some really good topics that we're going to cover the next few weeks. So let's do them.
I look forward to it. And I will see everybody next Tuesday night. And I hope you have a good week, because spring is here. It's 1st of March. The light has changed and we're headed towards nicer weather.
And my allergies have started. The daffodils are blooming, and all of the flowers in my yard have started.
Oh my word. And I've got still over a foot of snow in my yard, and it's just,
oh wow.
It is just winter wonderland out there.
You should come to North Carolina. It's beautiful. All my daffodils are popping.
Time to go.
In about another week, I should have daffodils for miles.
Send pictures.
2 weeks, it'll be camellias. We'll talk soon.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.